And I am back today for a second time scoping. Hello, replay viewers. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. And I am oh, yay! I'm so glad that you're joining me. Yay! Liberty, Kimberly. Oh my goodness, I am feeling very, very happy about this. So, anyway, thank you, Cynthia. So happy you're here. I am talking today about writing your story and changing lives. I'm talking about finding your audience. J Chase 33238, welcome. I am so glad you're here. And yesterday, here, let me just turn this around. Thank you for sharing, Kimberly. I appreciate that. Jay Chase, thank you. I wish I knew your first name. Do I know your first name? Yay, thank you. If you know anybody who is a writer or even is entertaining the notion of wanting to write their story or wants to look at their life from a different perspective, I hope that you share this broadcast. Yes, Liberty, I do know. She says, you know, this is a topic near and dear to my heart. Yes, it is, and to mine as well. Liberty, you're a fantastic writer. And sometimes we have trouble owning that as writers because we get tipped off balance so easily by other people's opinions. Oh, I'm feeling great today. Thank you. Thank you for asking. I am doing very, very well. This is my second scope of the day because I just feel like I have so much to share. And so today we're talking about writing your story, changing a life. Yesterday we talked about the reasons why you might want to write. And, they can be anything from a wish to a dream to a compelling reason why you must write, which I shared yesterday. The birth of my daughter was really the reason why I felt I had to write, because she was born with a birth defect. And I wanted something that she could take into the schools, or that I could take into the schools and share with the classroom to introduce her as this remarkable human being. And that was why I wrote the book, Rosie the Imperfect Angel. And it went on, I shared yesterday, it went on to do more than I ever dreamed possible and have an impact that I never thought possible. So that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I think you'll be excited to find out what's in store for you as you continue on your writing journey. And maybe you've already had this happen. If you have, please share with me. Thank you for all of the hearts. I'm so grateful. And I don't know if the hearts feel so good, because when I first started, I thought I would only get 5 or 10 hearts, and now I think over 6,000. So I just can't thank you enough. And to those of you who shared this broadcast, thank you so much. This helps me get my message out. And I do have a message, and so do you. And that's what I want to talk about today, is how important your message is to the world. Every person's story is unique, and every person's story has value and purpose. So please don't think that your story isn't worth something, because it is. It can change a life, and that's what we're talking about today. So, the first thing I want you to consider is, who is your audience? Now, when I wrote Rosie the Imperfect Angel, the fairy tale, I figured the audience would be young children, because it was a children's book. It's illustrated, in fact, beautifully illustrated by Tricia Moore. Oh my gosh, she did some beautiful illustrations. See? But when I wrote that book, and then I wrote a second book called Chester the Imperfect All-Star, and this was about a little angel who didn't have use of both of his legs, but he had the dream to play baseball. And so those two children's books took me into the classroom to really talk about what it feels like to be different. And as I shared yesterday, the impact that that book had on people was more than I ever dreamed possible, because as I mentioned, 20 years later, I got a call from a music producer who had been one of those little boys in the classroom. And he said, oh, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And he said, that book meant so much to me because I felt different. And so he ended up recording it as a spoken word CD with Melissa Gilbert from Little House on the Prairie. And the Moscow Symphony Orchestra played the music, and Marlee Matlin wrote the liner notes, and it made it all the way to the Grammy ballot in 2009. Now, when I wrote that book 20 years before, I had no idea it had that kind of impact. So here's what I want to share. Step one is, who is your audience? Who is going to be reading your book? Because deciding on who the reader is critical, because the book really isn't about you. The book is 80 to 90% about the reader and what they're going to take away. Because once you put it on the page, it's out there. You've given it as a gift. It's no longer about you. Oh, thank you for joining me. Singer, not the song. Oh, beautiful. Thank you for joining me. I'm talking about writing. I'm talking about your story and how important it is to share with others, whether you're a writer or not. Sharing your story has value and purpose, and it can give you the possibility of changing people's lives. So thank you. So step one about your story is, who is your audience? Who's going to be reading your book? It's more about who is reading it than it is about you once it's on the page. And so you always want to have an eye toward your reader. And when I wrote my second book, my fourth book, How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen, it was healing for me to write this book, because it was about healing from the loss of my son, the tragic loss of my son from bacterial meningitis. And up to that point, I thought nothing bad could ever happen again. And yet it did. I lost my son at 16, but I knew that I had the possibility of changing people's lives by writing about it. And so let me just turn this a little bit so I can get that shadow off. So I wrote this story, put it on the page so that I could help other people heal. But it was in the process of doing that I realized I was healing too. And I knew that I had so much to offer other parents like me, and a way of helping them heal, that I continued to write the book with an eye on who would be reading this book. So one of the steps that I took, and I think this is so important if you can do it. Melody Meyer joined us. Welcome. If you can do this before you ever start writing your book, write a paragraph on what you hope they will say. What you hope they will say this book has done for them. And this can be either a work of fiction or nonfiction, because you want to project what they are going to be getting from reading your book. And so I actually, before I wrote my book, How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen, I actually wrote a paragraph to myself as though I was reading what somebody had written to me. So I'm going to read this to you, because I wrote this paragraph, and I want to tell you what happened with this paragraph at the end of this Periscope. So it says, and I wrote this before I started my book, because this is what I hoped someone would say to me, and the purpose for writing my book, because you have a purpose for writing your book. It's so important. Dear Sandy, when my child died, I thought no one in the world could understand the way I was feeling. I felt so alone. As I continued reading, I began to feel hope that I could survive and have my life back. I am following your steps and realize recovering from grief is a process of the heart and the mind, and I'm committed to taking every step. Thank you for writing a book that could guide me on this difficult path. That was my letter to myself, because I wanted my book to mean something, and I figured that if I could have that kind of impact, then my book was absolutely worth writing. So that is step 2. Write a note or a letter to yourself saying what you hope your reader will say to you someday, and put it away and see what happens. I'm going to read you something at the end that I think will surprise you. Step 3 is, while they're reading, journaling Jesus. Oh, thank you for joining me. I think we've had contact before on Twitter, I think. And journaling is so important. I talked about journals this morning on my morning scope, and my very great tip my very great tip for a journal for Thanksgiving. So I hope you can catch that in replay, because it talks a lot about the purpose of a Thanksgiving journal. And I got such great reaction from that scope. So yay. Anyway, step 3 is, what are the actionable steps you want them to take? Now, in Rosie, the Imperfect Angel, thank you, Liberty, I wanted them to look at birth defects in a new way. I am currently doing one. Thanks. Fantastic. Okay. I hope you share about it, because I'll retweet it if you share about it, and send it on my page too. I think it helps so much. I wanted people, in reading my first book, Rosie the Imperfect Angel, to feel compassion for people who felt different, to feel compassion for those people that maybe felt different and looked different, and had even the boy who wrote me that I shared with you, who created the CD from it, he said he just always felt different. And today he's a Broadway producer, and he shines in his difference because he is the most creative person I know. So that was an actionable step. I wanted them to actively think about the beauty of imperfection. With my story, when I went into the schools, I remember one little girl in kindergarten saying to me, "I wish I had been born with a cleft," after reading my story. And I thought, wow, that was really reversing perspective, because she really found such tremendous beauty in that. I want to write a book about my life, but don't have the patience or time to sit and write. And you know what? I'm so glad that you said that, because I'm doing these periscopes every day about writing, and I'm also, in about a couple weeks, I'm going to be doing a 5-day periscope writing challenge, because that's what I do. I help people write, and I get them started, yes, one step at a time. And if you have support, if you can even just be inspired by other people who write, I'm telling you, writing can be difficult, that first step, but I promise you, once you start, it is so rewarding. It has so many creative rewards. And so I hope that you do start and sit down and write, even if it's just 10 minutes a day. I know when I started with a paragraph. I started with a sentence, and then a paragraph, and then it grew into a chapter. I started writing articles, and then blogs, and then books, and it builds on top of each other. And so don't be intimidated by that blank page. Thank you for the hearts again. So we're talking about step 3. Step 1 was, who's your audience? Who's going to be reading your book? Because your book is 80% about them, because they're going to be reading it. Step 2 is, write a paragraph on what you hope they're going to say to you before you ever start your book, and get a feel for what you hope that they're going to say about your book. And that means the purpose of your book. Step 3 is, what are the actionable steps you want them to take? In Rosie, it was to get a different perspective on the beauty of imperfection, and to be kinder toward each other. And little kids sometimes can have a difficult time knowing they say things that don't always feel so good. And so I'm doing Illustrated Faith. Wow, God Journal. I am currently on stage. Oh, I missed that last part. If you want to repost it, I'll read it. That sounds fantastic. Bible journal. Okay. Fantastic. That's beautiful. So step 3, in how to survive the worst that can happen, the actionable steps that I wanted them to take in reading this book was to actively pursue healing in their grieving process. I gave them specific steps at the end of every chapter to take to heal. And you know what? One of them chapter is about creativity and the role that creativity plays. I'm battling stage 4 breast cancer. That's to bone, so I help. Oh my gosh, what important work you're doing, and I'm so sorry. Oh, wow, that's really tough, and prayers of support to you, and I know all of us on this broadcast will feel that and be inspired by you. Yes, absolutely. And that's what I did. I turned it over to God to help me heal, and I have so many steps that I took in healing, and one of them was in having my time in the morning, spiritual practice that I did every single morning and continue to do. Yes, Liberty says prayers sent. So in my book, How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen, I wanted people to actively pursue healing by actively pursuing steps. And I was just sharing one of the chapters. I wrote about creativity and the role that it plays in healing. There is no denying that every single person is creative, no matter what. Because did you not paint when you were a little child, finger paints? Did you build sandcastles? Did you build popsicle cabins out of popsicle sticks? I mean, clay, silly putty, all of these things are creative things that we can do. And that's what I did. Yes, see, that's fantastic. That's what I do too. In fact, I don't know if you saw the picture on Twitter that I said, cappuccino and time for a scope. This is one of the things that I painted. I painted a cup. I used to take my kids to paint after my son died. I felt like in the studio time, painting was, yes, mud pies even. Painting for me was very relaxing. And you know what? It was great for my kids. And I have wonderful treasures that they painted when we would go into the studio after school. And it helped them heal. So anyway, step 3, what are the actionable steps you want them to take? Think about that when you're writing and outlining. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Losing my child was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. And to this day, it was also the most significant thing that ever happened to change me and give me a new perspective on life. And I can tell you that today I love harder. I'm a better person. I share more of my life with people than I ever have before. I never take a single day for granted. And I never leave anything unsaid to those people that I love. And that's how losing my son changed me. It also made me a writer because I'd written other books, but I felt like this one, wow, it is so significant. Yes, my son's name was Garrett. It's his legacy. He left me with his legacy, I'm convinced. I don't think any child dies without leaving a legacy and a purpose for those that are left behind. And for me, that was writing a book for helping other parents heal from the loss of a child. So step 3, what are the actionable steps you want them to take? I wanted them to start healing in an active way. And Liberty says, and those are all the reasons you're such a wonderful friend. I'm so blessed, Liberty. Thank you so much for saying that. I'm so fortunate. I'm fortunate to have friends like you and so many others. And you know what? Liberty, we met on Twitter. Yeah, that's how it happens. I'm so glad too. Thank you for sharing that. And for all of you giving me hearts, I am so grateful. It's really making me feel like what I'm sharing has value, and I so appreciate that. Many things in my life, brain tumor 10 years ago, kidney transplant 1 year ago, child molested as a child, and wow, you have really been through a lot, and no one deserves to be through so much. And we are all praying with you. We are all circling you with thoughts of love and prayer, and it sounds like you are on a path of healing, and we want to support you in that. So thank you for being so bold to share it. Heavy issues, heavy heart. Twitter is a great place for connection if open to it. Yes. Prayers. Yes. Hugs to you. Yes. Divorce after 25 years, but I'm strong. I know how. I understand divorce. I went through it myself after the loss of my child. It was really difficult, and it's one of the sometimes things that happen after you experience loss, is that two people that created that child struggle to find a place that doesn't feel quite so painful, and we weren't quite so fortunate to survive that loss. And then ultimately my husband died, and loss is difficult, but prayers and hugs to all who need them. I have loads to spare. Yes, she does. So if I can share with you two more things. Hard to hear that. It is hard because each person hurts. Yes. And none of us know how each other's feels. I mean, you can go through a divorce and I can go through a divorce, and we have two different experiences, and we kind of know what that experience is, but none of us really knows what that really feels like to the individual. Thank you for joining me. SCEEE joined. Thank you. Everybody that experiences loss experiences it at 100% in their own way. And so I'm a certified grief recovery specialist as well. That's one of the things that I do to help people. And, thank you. Wow. We all are affected differently. That is true. And one thing that I know is that I have worked with other women who have lost sons, and it's very different than my experience of losing a son. And so it's important to recognize that loss is individual, but felt 100%. There's no loss that is worse than another, really. I mean, people say that losing a child is the worst that can happen, which is why I titled my book that. But what I know, and the truth is, that all loss is experienced at 100%, so you feel that deep loss. And I just want to support you all in prayers. So my next tip, number 4, how do you want them to feel at the end of your book? Well, remember the paragraph that I read to you that I had written to myself, how I wanted them to feel. I actually got a letter. And that letter, let me just take a moment to read this. All illnesses after divorce, stress did me in, but I won't give up. And good, don't give up. Don't give up. You're here. You're standing. You're sharing. You're changing people's lives by being so bold to share your trials and your difficult times. But you are triumphing because you're sharing. Praying stress is hard. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. It is hard. And we're all supporting you. And thank you for sharing. You're starting to heal now by speaking up. Yes. Yes. And that's the thing that I hope people take away from going through loss, is it's a time to ask for help. And in asking for help, it's a time that we all need to recognize we're not superwomen. We can't do it on our own. We need help. It's a time to lift us up. And I've shared this before. Elephants in nature, female elephants, when there's one that's wounded, they surround her until she can stand on her own. And that's what we do. As women, as human beings, we feel compassion, and we surround you with our love and our support and lift you up so you can be supported until you can stand on your own. And you see all those hearts, those are for you. All of those hearts are for you. I wish I could tap the screen too, but I think that ends my broadcast. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. So what I wanted to say in writing your book is that paragraph that you write to yourself, keep that in mind while you're writing your book, because when someone reads your book, that's the feeling that you want them to have at the end. And here's a letter that I got after I wrote my book for the parent who had lost a child. Dear Sandy, when I first saw the title of your book, How to Survive the Worst That Can Happen, I thought there could be no way I could handle it. However, as soon as I started reading it, I felt like you were with me, and we were in direct communication in every single way. The book has been so helpful to me and will continue to be. I will follow through on your suggestions and I will get my life back. With love. When I got that letter, I cried because that was the exact letter I had written to myself in the hopes that that's the reaction that my reader would have. And it did. And so I'm telling you, the value of doing that step is so important because you're going to see the difference that you're making in people's lives. And you might not know it right away. And this leads to step 5. Step 5 in finding your audience, finding your reader, is allow room to be surprised that your audience may not be who you thought it was. I thought my book was specifically, yes, how beautifully healing and helping full circle. Yes, it does come full circle. It fuels me. It's why I write. And if you allow room to be surprised at the audience you didn't expect, that's the bonus with purchase. Because I thought my book for parents who have lost children was solely a small audience for that. And guess what? After I wrote it and it got out there, I started getting calls and emails and letters from people who said, my best friend just lost her child and I don't know what to do. I think I need to get her your book. I'd get calls from children who said, my mom just lost my sister and I don't know what to do. I want to get her your book. Where can I get it? I got a call from a recovery center, Addicts Recovery Center in Atlanta. And he said, sometimes we lose our kids, and I want to be able to give a book to parents when we haven't been so fortunate to heal that child. And so he got 100 books for his recovery center and is giving them to parents when they've had the unfortunate experience of loss. And I didn't expect that at all. I'm getting clergy who call me and ask me to send them a book so they can give it to someone in their congregation. I'm getting calls from people who see a national disaster and know someone who's been a part of it, and they want to send the book to the churches so they can hand it out at the church and be able to give it to those who have suffered such tragic loss. Now, none of those people were the audience for my book, I thought, until my book was out there. And then it happened. And it happens quite naturally because your book will find its audience no matter how clear you get on your target. And it is important to do that. And it's important to write from the heart and to share from the heart. But no matter how much you are clear on your target audience, it may surprise you. So that is my scope today. And I am so glad. If I'd had this book 22 years ago, oh, my dear friend, Cynthia, the perspective change I've had since reading. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you've helped me as well. I love your feedback. It means so much to me. It keeps me going. It keeps me wanting to write. And I am offering a 5-day Periscope writing challenge for those of you that are afraid to write or don't know how to write or just want a little extra help to get started writing. And it's absolutely free. And I just want you to, where are my cards here? To join me, and it's going to be in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have fun getting started writing together. Yay for the hearts. Thank you. It sounds like you like it. You like that idea. So I am Sandy Peckinpah on Twitter. You can message me if you want to be part of the writing challenge, and I'll email you if you send me your email. So important not to give a rat's ass what anyone thinks of your writing. That's so true. Isn't that true? Because it may not resonate with one person, but guess what? It's going to resonate with a whole bunch of other people. And you know how I found that out? Because I thought I was writing for the smallest audience there is, because not everyone has lost a child. But I was driven to write this book. And guess what? not only has it found its audience, but I've won awards. And I never thought I would. I never thought it would get that attention. And the awards are helping it get out there because people are noticing it, and I'm so grateful. And at worst, at least it resonates with you as the author. It's healing for you. Absolutely. It is healing. That's why we write. Every writer will tell you that. Because even if you're a fiction writer, you pour your heart and your soul, and all of your past experiences come into your writing. You just don't realize that. In fact, remind me, because I'm going to do a scope. As you know, if you've been on here with me before, excuse me, my husband and I worked together. He was a screenwriter, and he wrote for television and a film, and he had several television series, one of them being my favorite, Beauty and the Beast. And we used to create characters together, and I was also an actress. And what I learned in writing screenplays with him and also as an actress is that every character has a story and a backstory. And I talk about that in one of my blogs, because even if you don't portray that on the written page or in film or on as the character, as a writer, you know what that backstory is, and it makes your characters come to life. As an actress, you know what that story is, and it makes you create the character that you know that character needs to be. And so that is what is so important about a backstory on everything that you write, because everyone has a backstory. Everyone has a reason for what happened to them in their life. And that's what I take you through in my writing challenge, is we look at your backstory. We look at the positives and the negatives, and we create story with that. So anyway, again, it's at Sandy Peckinpah on Twitter. And if you want to email me and get on my email list, sandy@sandypeckinpah.com. And tell me that you want to be on my Periscope email list, and I'll send you an email when the 5-day writing challenge is about to start. Okay? So, thank you for joining me. You are an awesome audience. And again, my prayers to you, to all of you. We're all surrounding you in prayer. You are being held up and lifted up in prayer right now. And I am so grateful that you've joined me. If you joined late, I hope you go back and watch the replay, because we put, can you put up again? Yes, my email is Sandy. If you want to take a screenshot of that, you know how to take a screenshot. You hit the round menu button and on-off button, I think, at the same time. And that way it will, you can have it for a long time, and it goes to your camera. And then also, I'm at Sandy Peckinpah on Twitter. So I hope that you watch this in replay if you caught me at the end, because I had a lot to share. And just recap quickly: 1, who is your audience? Who's reading your book? 2, write a paragraph on what you hope they will say after they've read your book. 3, what are the actionable steps you want them to take while reading the book? 4, how do you want them to feel at the end of your book? And 5, allow room to be surprised that your audience may not be who you think it is. So that's all. Thank you so much for joining me. And finally, my wish for you to be surrounded by love. Enjoy every single day as a woman of strength, beauty, and committed to a joyful, successful life. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.